In this section, we will look at how to use a stopper to transition across the river. This might be to navigate a pair of gates, such as a down to down or down to up, where one gate is situated above and at one end of the stopper and the second below and at the other. We'll identify the four most common approaches and their strengths and weaknesses. The technique an athlete chooses may in part be due to the shape and angle of the stopper, but in theory, if it's square across the river, the drop into it isn't too steep, it possesses a reasonable eddy on top and a curl on either end, then all four techniques should be possible. Although the four headings used maybe aren't universally recognised, they offer a good descriptor and help differentiate between the techniques. It isn't uncommon to observe a top athlete using a blend of these. From a path of the boat perspective, this technique isn't significantly different from the feed in and rise up, in that the boat is positioned onto the stopper's eddy to achieve the required outcome. The difference is how this position is achieved, and this is generally faster than both the drop on and trundle and feed in and rise up techniques. The ideal setting to practice this competence is by using a stopper that sits square across the river, the drop into it isn't too steep, it has a reasonable eddy on top and preferably a curl on either end. The further accurate positioning of two gates, one situated a few metres above one end of the stopper, with the second, an up or a down, situated a few metres below the opposite end, will create a more authentic setting and guide the boat's movement and path. The lead gate should be positioned so the athlete is forced to make the essential movement across the river. From a safety perspective, it is essential to know in advance that any stopper utilised for this type of practice can be exited before engaging with it. The boat again moves towards the stopper with good movement in the desired direction, e.g. the path between the two gates. However, in order to place the bows onto the face, the set and lift technique is used, explained in the conservation of speed video. It is the accurate position of the bows in combination with good movement across the river that allows the athlete to position the boat onto the face with speed and movement in the desired direction. Two further factors are important. The angle of set on the boat before lifting the bows. It's important that enough set, i.e. the angle across the river, is placed on the boat before the upstream blade is triggered, so that when the bow lands onto the face it connects at such an angle that the desired direction of movement across the eddy is maintained. It's common for inexperienced athletes to not put enough set on the boat prior to lifting, causing the boat to over-rotate too far in a downstream direction and consequently ride over the back of the stopper. The second is the accurate positioning of the front of the bow onto the face. For the best outcome, the front needs to land near the middle of the vertical face so that some grab is experienced. But if the front is dropped into the bottom, there will be too much grab pulling the boat into it, too high, then too little grab, and the boat may wash over it. So now let's have another look at that in its entirety.